Hello and welcome back to Reading for Vocabulary. I'm Brian Stewart. In this lesson, lesson 13, we're going to talk about computer movies. We'll focus on thinking about movies and books you know. Also, what kinds of characters are in them. So we're going to talk about characters in movies, but we're really going to talk about special types of characters. What types of characters? Well, we'll find out later when we do the reading. But first, let's talk about this type of movie characters that we have here. Now, this is kind of interesting. Did you see this movie, Avatar? Did you ever wonder, how did they make the characters in the movie? Well, this picture kind of tells you. This is the real actor who played this character in the movie Avatar. I'm sorry, I forgot her name, but in the movie. But of course, there's no creature that looks like this, right? This is her again, and this is what she looks like in real life. This is what she looks like in the movie. Look at the difference. Isn't that amazing? How can they do that? Well, they use computer graphics, and that's what we're going to learn about in this lesson. Also, you may have seen this movie. Do you remember this movie? This character here, my precious, right? Okay, this character, of course, is Gollum from the Lord of the Rings. Is there really a person like that? No, of course not. There is not a person like that. The actor who played Gollum actually got an award for playing Gollum, but nobody ever saw what he really looked like. He was wearing a suit, right, with all these lights on it, and when they put his image in the computer, they can make his image look like this. And who's that? Of course, that's Yoda. Yoda I am, right? I'm sorry, I'm not a very good, I can't imitate Yoda very well. But this is Yoda from Star Wars. Actually, it's kind of silly seeing him jump around, with the lightsaber, but that was Yoda. Again, there's no real creature like Yoda. There's not real. Again, it was computer graphics. So when we talk about these characters in the movies, we're going to be talking about how they can make these types of characters, especially using computer graphics. Okay, well, let's take a look at one more picture from the movies. And this movie also kind of illustrates how movie directors can make scenes, especially in the background. Of course, this person here is real, and probably the mask he's wearing on his face is real, but this scene in the background, that's not real, right? That's a computer graphic. It's probably a blue screen, right? And what these people, these actors act in front of a colored screen, and then on the computer, after they make the film, they can add all sorts of interesting images in the background to that blue screen that the actors are actually acting in front of. Okay, well, let's begin, of course, with our first word on our word list for the vocabulary. Now, this is an interesting picture. This character here, of course, there's no such thing as a skeleton that can move and hold a lamp, so that's not real. And if you saw something like that, you would be really scared, wouldn't you? Extreme fear. What is extreme fear? And this is a word used to describe certain types of movies that make you really scared. We call those horror movies. A horror movie is a movie that makes you feel extreme fear. It's horror. It's not just fear, but horror. Horror is like nomo, 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 musuwayo. Okay? Very, very, very afraid, or really afraid. Horror is a strong degree of fear, extreme fear. And if you ever saw an actual skeleton that's moving, you would probably be horrified. You would feel horror. Okay, next one. Kind of cute. What is that? Can you see the little boy here? You see his hand and you see his eyes there. This is a very simple example of the word. This is a very simple costume. A costume is something you wear to look special. Why would the kid here wear a costume like that? By the way, this is just a bed sheet. A bed sheet. It's a sheet of cloth you put on your bed Mom took it, maybe it's an old bed sheet, and she cut 2 holes in it for the eyes. That's a very simple costume. It's got a very cheap costume too, but it's a costume. Costume. Now, why would a boy or girl wear a costume to look special, especially this type of costume? What's the event? Well, in America, of course, you may have heard of Halloween. Halloween is a special day of the year when kids wear costumes as monsters, as ghosts, or as popular movie characters or even singers. I heard that recently, like last year or the year before that, many American kids dressed up as Psy, right? The Korean singer, for Halloween, and they go trick-or-treating. They knock on people's doors and they say trick-or-treat, and people will give them candy, especially they're dressed up in different costumes. So, you know, any costume, it can be like a monster, it can be a ghost, or it can be famous people too. All sorts of different costumes out there. Next one, not real. Something that is not real. This man is looking at the money and trying to think, is this real or is it phony? Is it phony? A phony $20 bill, or actually that looks, it could be a euro. I'm not sure what currency that is. But if the money is not real, if it's phony, it's worthless, right? Unfortunately, there are bad people who make fake copies of money and try to use it as real money, and it's phony money. There's another word that's very common we use for that. We say fake. If something is fake, it's the same as saying phony, not real. It's fake, it's not real. It's phony, it's not real. PH is pronounced as ph, phony. Okay, so it's phony, not real, or it's fake. Okay, next one. Okay, now here we have a picture here. When I first saw this picture, I'm like, wow, is that real? It looks so perfect, doesn't it? It's a perfect town. And then I looked at the boats and I'm like, what about this boat? Is that boat real? But yes, it is real. Looking like something real is realistic. It is realistic, and of course it is real, because there are boats like that. And you can see the detail in the water. Everything here is looking very realistic. It is very realistic. We believe that this is an actual picture, and it probably is. Realistic means looking like something real. Next one. Oh, what's wrong with him? He's feeling fear. What can we say about him? Is he frightened? He is frightened. We wouldn't say he is frightening. No, we wouldn't say that. We would say he's frightened, because that's his reaction to something that is frightening. Be careful, right? We may have talked about this before. Frightening, use ing for the thing that causes someone to react by being frightened. Frightening, frightened. We could also say he is scared. He is scared, or he is afraid, right? These are all synonyms for frightened. He's frightened. He's afraid. He's scared. He saw something that is frightening. Okay? So, frightened means that he is feeling fear. Next one. Now, you know this painting, right? This is a very famous painting, painted by a very famous artist who lived in Italy a long time ago. Do you know the name of this painting? It's called the Mona Lisa, right? And why is it such a famous painting? Because it looks like a real person or thing. Even though this is just a painting, it was painted a long time ago, and it was painted with such skill that this woman, it looks lifelike. It looks lifelike. I just used that word, yeah. Lifelike. It looks lifelike. Looks like a real person or thing. Of course, the woman who modeled for this painting, she was real, but it's amazing that the artist's skill, the talent, that the artist Leonardo da Vinci could paint such a lifelike picture of the actual woman. Okay? Okay, next one. To tell the difference. Here we have a picture of many people raising their signs. They're saying yes, they're agreeing. But there's one person in the middle that says no. And they're different from the other people. That person, we can distinguish that person because we can easily see the difference. When you distinguish, when you distinguish something, that means you can see the difference. For example, can you distinguish who is the boss and who are the employees? Can you tell? Can you see the difference? Can you tell the difference between the boss and the employees? Sometimes you can't. You have to watch and see how people act. Then you can distinguish who's the boss and who are the employees. But sometimes if you just look very quickly, you can't. Other things are very easy to distinguish. It's very easy to distinguish. If you see several people and one person is blonde and the other people have brown hair, then you can easily distinguish the blonde person right away. You can tell the difference. Distinguish. Okay. This person has an idea. It's represented with this drawing. We usually use this idea, light bulb. A light bulb is turning on in her head. A light bulb is turning on in her head. That's a common idea. Having new ideas and making new things. If somebody can do this many times during the day, we call them creative because they have many new ideas. Having new ideas or making new things. If you think of new ideas, if you can think of new ways to draw or new ways to make something, then perhaps you are creative too. Also, authors are creative. They come up with different stories, like J.K. Rowling's, who wrote the Harry Potter series. She's very creative to think of all those characters and all those new ideas for a story, right? So there are many creative people in the world. They think of new things and they make new things. Okay, number 9. This is a beautiful landscape, the appearance of a place. So we're looking at the appearance of a place. Don't worry about the woman, but we're looking about the appearance. You know, very interesting, distinguishing mountains, right? But if we look at some place and we say, wow, the beep is very beautiful, we say the scenery is very beautiful. It's the appearance of a place, what a place looks like. If you go up into the mountains, it's very beautiful scenery. You go to the beach, you look out over the ocean and the beach, the sand, that's beautiful scenery. Sometimes scenery isn't so beautiful. If you go to a train station, scenery is not so good. Or if you go to a town that there are many factories, the scenery is not so good. So scenery doesn't mean good or bad, it's just what things look like. What is the scenery where you live? Okay. Speed limit is 25 miles per hour. In Korea, you would say kilometers per hour. But it's the greatest amount of possible. And I said the word is actually right here. It's limit, right? The word we're looking for is limit. So limit means the greatest amount possible. That means the greatest amount you can drive, the speed that you can drive in this area is 25. Whether it's miles per hour or kilometers per hour, depends what country you're in, right? But it's the limit. You can't go over that. You cannot go over that. If you do, you'll get arrested, right? It's the greatest amount possible, in this case under the law, but it's the greatest amount possible in a certain place. It's the limit. Okay, she's having a good time, right? It looks like she's having a party, causing great interest. That, of course, is exciting. And look, cause. The cause, we use ing. The cause, it's exciting. Her reaction would be what? Excited. You got it. Good. Her reaction would be excited. The cause is exciting. Something that causes great interest is exciting. Her reaction is excited. Okay. Now, this man, what is he doing? He looks like he's about to go swimming, right? He is standing on the end part of something, the end part of the deck, right? That's the end. What do we call that? We call that the edge. He's standing on the edge of the pool deck, right? Be careful. Don't stand on the edge of a cliff, right? If you go to see the Grand Canyon, or if you go up in the mountains and you have a good view, Don't stand on the edge. That's dangerous. Don't stand on the end part. Stay away from the edge. Okay? But the edge is the end. There's no more land. Woo! You fall off. Okay? In this case, it's okay. He's going to fall in the water and go swimming. But be careful of other edges, like on the edge of a cliff or at the mountains. Okay. Oh, you know him. That's Johnny Depp, right? He was the main character in the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. A person who acts in plays or movies. What is Johnny Depp? Johnny Depp is an actor. Okay? There are many famous actors that you can probably name right away, like Johnny Depp, Brad Pitt, George Clooney. These are famous actors. Sometimes, people will use actor for women too. Actor is a person. Doesn't mean a man. Used to be actor was only man, but now we use that also to describe women. Before they said actress, but it's becoming more and more common now. People just say actor for men and women. Okay. Do you know this picture? This is a famous picture. What is it a picture of? It's a picture of the Loch Ness. It's a Scottish accent. Loch. It's in Scotland. In Scotland they say Loch Ness. Okay, but Loch Ness what? The Loch Ness Monster. It's the Loch Ness Monster, but it's not real. This is a fake or phony picture. It's a phony picture. It was a trick. Somebody tried to play a trick on many people and said there was a monster in the lake, a horrible creature, a terrible creature, and they said it's the Loch Ness Monster, but it's not real. But a monster is a horrible creature, a terrible creature. That would be a monster. 15, to get very cold. Whew, I feel cold just looking at this picture, right? What happened to the water around this boat? This boat is not supposed to be on snow and ice, right? This boat is supposed to be in water. It was in water, but the water got very cold. What did the water do? It freeze. To freeze, it froze. Freeze, froze, frozen. So the water around the boat froze, right? When water freezes, it turns into ice, okay? So to get very cold is to freeze. Freeze is also when a liquid turns into a solid, like water turning into ice, okay? So that is freeze. Next, not easy to do. It's not easy to climb a mountain, is it? It's very difficult. It takes a lot of effort. It's especially difficult when the mountain is covered in snow and it's very cold out. So not easy to do, something is difficult. Oh, 힘들어. Oh, 너무 힘들어, right? It's difficult. It's hard to do. Do not say, I am hard to climb the mountain. Whoops. Climb, that's M. Climb the mountain. Don't say that. This is Konglish. Many students say this. I am hard. No, not I. It. It is. Don't say I am hard. Say it is hard. It's hard to climb the mountain. Or it's difficult to climb the mountain. Okay? But please stop saying this. If you're saying this, I am hard, I am difficult. No. It is difficult to climb the mountain. It is difficult to walk up the stairs. Okay? The situation, not you. Okay? It is hard to climb the mountain. It is difficult to climb the mountain. Okay, so something's difficult, it is hard to do it. Let's go over the exercises here. In the exercises, we should complete each sentence with a word from the box. These are the sentences. These are our words. Let's review the words before we begin. First, we have horror. Horror. Next, costume. Costume. Next is phony. Phony. Next, we have realistic. Realistic. Next is frightened. Frightened. Next is lifelike. Lifelike. And distinguish. Distinguish. Finally, we have creative. Creative. Okay, those are the words in the box. Let's see where they go in the sentences. Number 1, the bad boys. Napanaladi, right? Did you say napanaladi? You just say naladi, right? You said naladi, right? Bad boys. Okay. The bad boys made beep phone calls to the fire station. Oh, those bad boys! They were making phone calls to the fire station that were not real. They weren't true. That's terrible. Don't do that. Okay? The bad boys made, what's not real? What word means not real or fake? Phony. The bad boys made phony phone calls to the fire station. This is really bad. Don't ever do that. Don't ever make a phony phone call to the fire station or the police. It could be very dangerous. It's very bad to do. The nomo napun boys. I think you say naladi, right? Very bad boys. Very bad boys. They shouldn't do that. Number 2, an expert can beep real pearls from imitations. So an expert, this is kind of similar to phony, right? Think about real pearls from imitations. Imitations would be phony pearls. Now, what is a pearl? A pearl is a precious, it's like a stone. You find it in an oyster or a clam. It's a round, white, and sometimes very beautiful if you get a good pearl. Very beautiful like stone, and people will use it in jewelry, especially necklaces. Now, of course, an expert can tell, because some people try to copy the real pearl from nature, right? But an expert can tell the difference. What's another word for tell the difference? Another word that we talked about here is distinguish. Distinguish. So an expert can distinguish real pearls from imitations. It means an expert can tell the difference between a real pearl and a phony pearl, an imitation, a fake pearl. Okay? And of course you have to be careful. There's people out there who try to cheat. They'll make phony money. They'll make phony pearls. They'll make phony gems, diamonds and things like that. But how do you know? Usually experts can look at them and they know, because they're experts. They know a lot about their subject. Okay, next one, number 3. I don't believe that you can fly. I don't believe that you can fly. Who can fly? I don't believe anybody can fly. Please be more what? So in this situation, one person is telling this person that, oh, hey, I can fly. You can fly? I don't believe you can fly. Please be more what? Please be more realistic. Don't be silly. Don't, make up things. Don't make phony beliefs or phony statements. Be realistic. In other words, something that is real or true to life. Okay. 4. This fake flower is really what? It's interesting. A lot of these sentences are using fake, phony, imitation. A lot of the subjects, a lot of these words have to do with that idea. So this fake flower, not a real flower, but a fake flower is really what? Is really lifelike. It's fake, but it looks lifelike. It looks like it's real. It's lifelike. Okay. Next one, 5. The old woman likes to wear a traditional beep all the time. Now here we have traditional, and here we have wear. What can you wear here? The only thing you can wear is a costume. But here we have traditional. Now the example I used for costume, and we saw, was of the little boy in a bedsheet. He looked like a ghost, right? And of course it's costume. But in this case, it's a traditional costume. Costume isn't always, about for Halloween. People don't just wear costumes on Halloween when they want to look like a ghost or a monster or a famous person. Sometimes costume also means the traditional clothes of a people or a culture, right? If you think about it, what is the traditional costume for Koreans? Hanbok, right? It's what Koreans would have worn a long time ago, 100 years ago. You could also say that is a costume. In Germany, they would wear Lederhosen, right? It's a traditional German dress for Germany. Every country has different traditional costumes. They're special clothes that people wear for special occasions, okay? So they can be costumes also. Number 6, she was beep to see a stranger in the dark alley. She was what? If you see a stranger, somebody you don't know, in a dark alley, it's dark. This could be surprising. You could be a little musuwayo. You could be a little what? You could be a little frightened. She was frightened to see a stranger in the dark alley. She was frightened. By the way, it's funny, just a little story about Korean. I remember musuwa, because you know the big SUV, the muso? I think, oh, musuwa, so I am afraid. Okay, so long, hey, I'm sorry. But that's just funny, is sometimes you use these little tricks to remember words, okay? So you know the car called muso, it comes, I'm afraid. Musuwa, oh, I'm sorry. Okay, next one. Okay, number 7. A good writer has a great beep talent. A good writer. What do writers do? Writers have to think of new ideas. They have to make new stories, right? So somebody who can make new ideas or think of new ideas and make new things, we call those people creative. A good writer has a great creative talent. A creative talent. They can make or think of new things. 8. I was filled with beep at the sight of the dead body. Ugh. If you saw a dead body, how would you feel? Now, you would feel frightened, but you're not filled with frightened. You're filled with horror. I was filled with horror at the sight of the dead body. So maybe you're frightened by a dead body, but you are filled with horror at the sight. So that's kind of a special construction for using horror. You are filled with horror at the sight of something. That's a common collocation. It's a common expression, common usage. Okay, so those are our words, some good words and some good sentences to learn those. Again, like I said, we can see a lot of them are about, distinguishing between something that's phony and something that's real, a lot of these. And of course, that's what the reading passage will be about. And we're going to go over that in just a second, so don't go away. Okay, welcome back. Let's go over the reading section for this unit. Of course, we're talking about computer graphics and how they are used in the movies. So, let's talk about, let's first of all, of course, go over the reading together. Let's read this together. Have you ever seen an old horror movie? Did the monsters in the movie look real? Many of those creatures were just people wearing costumes. So this reading passage starts off with a couple of questions, and these questions are introducing the topic to us. The topic, of course, is how real do movies look, and the fact that we can make real movies in computers. But we start off with, have you ever, common question, have you ever seen an old horror movie? An old horror movie. Not a new horror movie, but an old horror movie. Maybe 20 years ago, 30 years ago, maybe even 50 years ago. Did the monsters in the movie, the old horror movie, did they look real? Were you convinced that those monsters were real? This is an example. Is this monster real, or is it just a person with a lot of makeup on, right? Many of those creatures, we're talking about the monsters, right? Many of those creatures were just people wearing costumes. This man is wearing a costume, right? So the monsters in the movie were just people. They were wearing costumes, okay? So maybe they didn't look real. They didn't look scary at all. That's why today movies are being made with computer graphics. Okay, so far we've seen this writer is talking about old horror movies. The fact that the people who acted as monsters in old horror movies, they're just people wearing costumes. They didn't look scary. They didn't look scary. When we see them, when we go to see the movie, we see them and the audience is not scared. It's like, it's just a guy in a costume. It's not scary, right? That's why today, that's why, because they don't look scary, Today, movies are being made with computer graphics. Computer graphics don't use people in costumes. Computer graphics, artists can create whatever they want, right? That's why movies today are being made with computer graphics, because they want to scare people. They don't want to use people in costumes. They want to scare people. They want to make things look more realistic, right? Before computers, it was hard to put an imaginary monster in a movie. Usually the creature looked phony. The audience wasn't fooled, and this made the movie less fun to watch. Of course, you probably remember some older movies where the monsters, especially if the monsters weren't human, they were like octopus or octopi or something, or looked something like that. It was very difficult to make something look real, right? Before computers were used to make movies. It was hard, it was difficult to put an imaginary, right, is not a real monster. It's something somebody thought of. And not all monsters look like people, right? I gave the example of the octopus. There were examples of movies where there were like a big squid attacking a submarine or a boat, or even the movie Jaws. That's an old movie, you may not know it, but there was a big shark in that movie. The shark was huge, it was like a monster, but it was just a machine, right? And it didn't look real. If we see it today, we say, oh, that shark looks fake, right? Because it's hard to make an animal or a big monster look real. And it's an imaginary monster in a movie. Usually the creature looked phony. That's what I said. It looked phony. It looked fake. It did not look real. The audience, remember the audience is the group of people, not individual people. We say audience, not audiences, Anil. Audience is the group of people watching the movie. The audience wasn't fooled, and this made the movie less fun to watch. So the audience wasn't fooled. Fooled means they weren't tricked. They could see, oh, look at the wires on the monster, or that monster looks like it's made out of rubber, or it doesn't look real. And because of that, the movie was less fun. It's not as fun to watch when you say, oh, that monster looks so stupid, right? Have you ever gone to a movie, or have you ever seen a movie where you've seen the monster and you can see the wires, or you can see, oh, that monster looks really fake or stupid? All of a sudden you're like, this movie's not good. You lose the interest. It makes the movie less fun to watch, and that's too bad. But with computer graphics, yeah, all this change, all that situation, right? The fact that, you know, people had to wear costumes, or that the imaginary monsters didn't look real. All the fact that the audience thought that the monsters looked phony, and they lost interest in the movie. All of this changed with computer graphics. The monsters in movies started to look realistic. Movies became scarier and more exciting. Look at this crazy monster. That looks like a spider with a human person growing out of it. Ugh, but it looks pretty real, doesn't it? That's because of computer graphics can make this creature, this horrible looking creature, look real, right? The monsters in movies began to look realistic. They started to look real. Movies became scarier. If you think it's real, you're more frightened. The movie is scarier and more exciting. You're like, oh, if you're scared, you're excited, right? So movies were more interesting, more exciting, and scarier. And people like that. It's entertaining. Did you see the movie Jurassic Park? In the movie Jurassic Park, the heroes have to run away from a hungry dinosaur. Audiences were so frightened that they were on the edge of their seats. It looked like a real dinosaur was chasing the people in the movie. Okay, so did you see that movie, Jurassic Park? That was a very famous movie. Again, Steven Spielberg, I think, directed that movie. In that movie, Jurassic Park, you know, about a group of people who go to an island. There's real dinosaurs on the island. That's the story. Not really, but that's the story. Jurassic Park, the heroes have to run away from a hungry dinosaur. A big Tyrannosaurus Rex was chasing them, right? Audiences. Now here they use plural audiences because they're talking about many different movie theaters, right? Jurassic Park played in movie theaters all across America. There were many groups of people in different movie theaters. And in all those movie theaters, the audiences, we're talking about different movie theaters, not one movie theater and different people. Audience is a team. So the audiences in all these movie theaters were so frightened that, remember you use so, adjective, that. So frightened, and then what's the result? This is the cause, what's the result? So frightened, that's the cause, what's the result? They were so frightened that they were on the edge of their seats. What does that mean? If you are very excited, if you're very scared, do you sit back in your chair, nice and relaxed? No. You sit on the edge of your seat, you're ready to jump up and run away, aren't you? So you sit on the very end of your seat, the very edge of your seat. And that's where people sit when they're excited or they're scared or they're very interested in something, right? You don't sit back and, right? You sit on the edge of your seat and it's very exciting, okay? That's a common expression to say that people are interested or they're frightened or they're excited. He's sitting on the edge of his seat. It's a common expression. Okay. It looked like, that means on the screen, in the movie, it looked like a real dinosaur was chasing the people in the movie. If you saw the movie Jurassic Park, it was really amazing. It really looked like they were real dinosaurs and people were running and the dinosaurs would run around them, in front of them, behind them, all around them. It was really amazing. It was a very amazing movie and it was all made possible, of course, by computer graphics. Okay. Of course, there wasn't really a 30-foot tall T-Rex running after the actors, but the audience believed that there was. The dinosaur looked amazingly lifelike. And there's our T-Rex right there. Okay, so of course there wasn't really. It's not true. It's not a real situation. There wasn't really a 30-foot tall. Now, of course, Americans use feet. I'm sorry about that. You guys use meters. How many meters is that? Well, there's 3 feet in 1 meter. So roughly 30 feet divided by 3, that's 10 meters. So that's pretty tall, isn't it? A 10-meter tall dinosaur, right? That's really tall. A 10-meter tall. And notice I'm using these hyphens because I'm using the noun. 10-meter tall dinosaur. Right? 10-meter tall dinosaur. If you use these adjectives before the noun, it's a compound adjective, so we need the hyphens. And same thing, 30-foot tall, in this case, the noun is T-Rex. And this is a T-Rex. T-Rex is short for Tyrannosaurus Rex, which is the name of this dinosaur right here. And as you can see, it is very scary, and it has really big teeth. And if it caught you, it would eat you very quickly. Thank goodness dinosaurs aren't still on the earth, right? Okay, they're long gone. Okay, so of course there wasn't really a 30-foot tall T-Rex running after the actors. That's not true. That's not the real situation. But, however, the audience believed. They believed in their mind. They thought it was real. It looked realistic. They believed that there was a dinosaur. Okay? Even though the sentence stops, we can continue it in our mind. But the audience believed that there was a 30-foot tall T-Rex running after the actors. Okay? So even though the sentence stops, we can continue it in our mind. The dinosaur looked amazingly. It was amazing, and it looked amazingly lifelike. It looked real. It looked like it was actually alive. It looked lifelike. Okay, and here we see this is kind of a representation of probably what this might look like on the computer screen. I don't know how well this is showing up on your screen there, but you can see the trees are not real. They are computer generated. We can also see the ground is not real. It's just a flat plane of green things. And of course, here's the dinosaur here. So this is kind of maybe like a basic layout of the action on the computer. Now, computer artists can go ahead and add a lot of detail to this picture to make the motion picture. So that's an example of a computer graphic there. Okay. Now coming back to the text, we're talking about the 30-foot tall or the 10-meter tall T-Rex. It could breathe, swallow, and even move its eyes. It could even do that. No one could distinguish what was real from what wasn't. Okay? So when they say they're talking about the T-Rex, the dinosaur in the movie. It could breathe. It looked like it could breathe. Its sides moved in and out, right? It could swallow. Well, its throat moved, right? The throat moved like it was actually swallowing something. And even the eyes on the dinosaur could move back and forth. No one in the audience could distinguish. They couldn't tell the difference between what was real and what wasn't. In fact, you know, the actors were probably acting in a big empty room and the walls were just a blue screen. But everything looked real and no one could tell. Is the tree real? Is the dinosaur real? Is the grass real? Nobody could tell. It all looked very real. Computer graphics also let us make more creative movies. The Day After Tomorrow is a movie about the Earth freezing. Before computer graphics, making a movie like this would have been very difficult. How do you cover the whole world with snow? Okay, there's kind of a long passage here. We're kind of breaking from Jurassic Park, and we're talking about computer graphics. They also let us make more creative movies. So not just dinosaurs running around in the background, but now we can do more creative things. We can do even better or even more interesting, more newer or more original movies. Not just dinosaurs. In this movie, The Day After Tomorrow, that's the example. That's the example of the movie. It's a movie about the Earth freezing. So in this movie, the Earth freezes, right? It's talking about climate change. There's a big swing in the climate change. Most of the world freezes, becomes very cold. Before computer graphics, making a movie like this would have been very difficult. It would have been very difficult to make a movie like this of the Earth freezing. How do you cover the whole world with snow? How do you cover the whole world with snow? You can't do it. But in computer graphics, you can. So before computer graphics, it would have been very difficult to make this movie. How do you cover the whole world with snow is the question. And the next, this kind of scenery is only possible with computer graphics. That's the answer to the previous question. Nowadays, it seems like there is no limit to the kinds of movies that we can make. Thanks to computer graphics, we can make a movie about almost anything. So this is kind of the end of the passage here. They're basically opening up the idea that, you know, you can do almost anything with computer graphics, okay? They're talking about here, this kind of scenery. What they're talking about there is that the Earth freezing over. The question before that is, how do you cover the whole world with snow? How do you make it look, the view, remember the view is scenery, how do you make the scenery look like there's snow everywhere? This kind of scenery is only possible with computer graphics, right? Before computer graphics, it would have been very difficult to make that kind of movie. But with computer graphics, it's the only way we can do it. It's the only possible way. Nowadays, these days, it seems like, we're not sure, but it seems like there is no limit. There is no limit to something. There's no limit to the kinds of movies that we can make. If you say there's no limit to something, that means you're not stopped by any boundary. You can do anything. Anything is possible. There's no limit to the kinds of movies that doesn't mean you and I, but it means human beings, directors, anybody can make. There's no limit to what kinds of movies we can make. Thanks to, because of computer graphics, we can make a movie about almost anything. And movie directors are making movies about almost anything. For example, again, Avatar. I mean, without computer graphics, how do you make 10-foot tall blue creatures with funny ears and interesting clothes running around in the treetops and floating rocks? How do you make a movie like that? You can make a movie with about almost anything with computer graphics. Thanks to computer graphics, they can make those types of movies. Okay, let's go over the reading comprehension here. The question number 1 again, this story is about what? This story is about A, computer graphics, B, monsters, C, horror movies, D, unbelievable movies. So of course this reading comprehension, this reading passage was about how computer graphics have changed movies, about how computer graphics have changed from the old style of making movies, the old movies that were unbelievable and audiences got bored because they could see the things were phony, to now we have computer graphics, we can make very interesting and exciting and scary movies. So this story is about computer graphics. It's not about monsters. They only mention monsters. That's just a small detail of the reading passage. This story is about horror movies. Well, they talked about horror movies at the beginning, but that was just an example of showing how computer graphics have improved horror movies. So that's not the answer. This story is about unbelievable movies. No, they were talking about movies at the beginning that weren't believable, that audiences could see that they were phony, so they lost interest, they lost the fun of the movie. So that's not it. That was just a small detail of the passage. The whole story was about computer graphics and how computer graphics has changed the way movies are made and the way that movies are more realistic these days. Okay, number 2. Computer graphics help us what? What do computer graphics help us do? A, take better videos. B, understand dinosaurs. C, make more phony movies. D, make more realistic movies. So which one is true? Computer graphics help us take better videos. Take a video means just using a video camera and shooting film. It doesn't help you take a better video. Computer graphics don't help you take better pictures. Your video camera is just, it's going to take pictures by itself. Computer graphics are what happens after you take the video. So that's not the right answer. And besides, that wasn't mentioned in the reading passage at all. The reading passage didn't mention anything about us taking videos. It didn't mention that. Computer graphics help us understand dinosaurs. That's kind of silly, right? It talked about dinosaurs, but it talked about dinosaurs in the context of Jurassic Park in that movie. And they weren't talking about studying dinosaurs, how they lived, how they reproduced, how they ate, or how they behaved. No, it was just about entertainment. It wasn't a study about dinosaurs. We're not studying about dinosaurs. Computer graphics help us make more phony movies? No, the opposite is true. It helps us make more realistic movies. So it's not that one, it's this one. C and D are opposites, right? It's not C, it's D. It's not phony movies, it's realistic movies. Computer graphics help us make more realistic movies, not phony movies. So D is the right answer. D is the right answer. Okay, number 3. In Jurassic Park, the T-Rex, remember that's a Tyrannosaurus Rex with the big teeth, the T-Rex, beep, what? Was real? B, could breathe, swallow, and move its eyes. C, was 40 feet tall. D, was a person wearing a costume. So what was true about the T-Rex in Jurassic Park? It was real. Right? That's the right answer. No, I'm sorry. And thank goodness. There are no dinosaurs, there are no Tyrannosaurus Rexes real, living, that we can use in a movie today. That's a good thing, actually. It might be cool to look at it, but think about it. It's a good thing it's not real. It was fake. It wasn't real. It could breathe, swallow, and move its eyes. That's exactly what the passage said. In Jurassic Park, in the movie, the dinosaur could breathe, swallow, and move its eyes Yes, that is true. That is the answer. C is wrong because they're using 40. It was 30 feet tall, not 40 feet tall. By the way, you might be asking yourself, hey, why aren't there hyphens here? Why aren't there hyphens? Because in this case, there's no noun after it. So we don't use hyphens. Remember, if you're using a compound adjective like that, only use dash or hyphen in front of a noun. If you don't use the noun, don't use the hyphens. Okay? That's just a side note. Maybe you're wondering that. Okay, D. So C is not right. Okay, but what about D? The T-Rex was a person wearing a costume. No. First of all, it would be very hard for a person to get in the shape of a dinosaur. And besides, it was 30 feet tall. It was 10 meters tall. I don't know any people who are 10 meters tall, right? So, and the passage didn't say anything about that. So that's not right either. The passage specifically said in Jurassic Park the T-Rex could breathe, swallow, and move its eyes. Okay. Number 4. In old horror movies a long time ago, A, monsters were really scary. B, monsters were people wearing costumes. C, monsters were made with computer graphics. D, monsters were very lifelike. What was the complaint that the writer was talking about old horror movies? The writer said that in old horror movies, the monsters were usually people wearing costumes. So B is the right answer. In old horror movies, monsters were people wearing costumes. And so the audience could see, that's just a person wearing a costume. And it wasn't very scary. So they weren't scary in old horror movies. Monsters were made with computer graphics? No, that's not right, because in old horror movies, computer graphics weren't around. They didn't exist. That's the whole point of this passage. Computer graphics made horror movies scarier because they didn't have to use people wearing costumes. They can make whatever they wanted in the computer. So C is not right. What about D? Monsters were very lifelike? No. People wearing costumes, it didn't look real. Also, the monsters that they used that weren't human-based, like octopus or sharks or something like that, they weren't lifelike. So that's not true either. B, monsters were people wearing costumes in old horror movies. Okay, well that's very interesting. We learned a lot about computer movies in this lesson. And of course, everybody likes movies. I'm sure a lot of the movies that you will see nowadays, they really use a lot of computer graphics, especially the action movies, the horror movies, movies about science fiction or about monsters, those types of movies. They really need to use a lot of computer graphics, right? A couple of examples. Well, a good example is Jurassic Park. These dinosaurs, they're not real. We know dinosaurs don't exist today, but these dinosaurs really looked real in the movie. It was really impressive. And also, the other movie that we talked about was The Day After Tomorrow. This is actually supposed to be a scene in downtown New York, I believe. And how can you really cover New York with water and ice? You can't unless you use computer graphics, and you can make it look like New York and the world is covered with ice. But you can't do it without computer graphics. So this lesson was basically about how computer graphics have changed movies and changed movies for the better. Movies are more fun, movies are more exciting, and movies are scarier. And so we enjoy those movies a lot more. Anyway, that wraps it up for today. We'll see you guys next time. Take care, everybody.